What's going on, everybody? My name is LIZAH'S. I like to alter people's minds through the lens of astrology, and we have an upcoming full moon in Capricorn on June 29th. This is gonna be a pretty jam packed week. We have a lot of stuff astrologically happening around this same exact time. So I'm gonna be kind of channeling this more of and kind of just reading and the general energy that I am picking up on with these upcoming transits. But basically, a full moon in Capricorn. But the easiest way to understand this is to break it down into pieces. Anything astrologically, I feel like breaking it down into pieces is the way to understand it. So we have a full moon. Full moons are known to be times of release. They're not times of really, it's kind of like a build up. It was like new moons or when we're planting seeds, kind of looking within and picking which direction to go in. And then a full moon is like, okay, this is what happens after we've picked what direction to go in. It's kind of like that final culmination moment of everything. Like it's kind of like it's like a obviously it's about harvesting, and it's about just like really gaining the benefits from our hard work in a lot of ways, and kind of like, I don't know, I just see it as like this is a time where we've built everything that we've kind of gotten ourselves to this point. It's kind of like it really is all about releasing. It really is all about letting go of anything that we no longer need to be holding on to. And so this is happening in Capricorn. Capricorn is the hardest working sign. Capricorn is all about ambition, hard work. It's the 10th house, so it's all about legacy, career. And so this is kind of like, once you break it down like that, you clearly can understand that this is a time for releasing anything that comes to your career, your reputation, the work that you've been putting in. And this is also, obviously, this is opposite the sun, and so this is really highlighting the sun in Cancer, really highlighting like our work life balance. And so really, and especially with everything else going on too, like the Mercury Cancer retrograde that's happening around this same exact time, like this is also pointing us to like there's this Capricorn energy, right? And it's kind of like asking us to release this need to always work and to prove ourselves some sort of way, and kind of instead more tap into this Cancer type energy that's like, hey, maybe we should like actually say how we feel and not look at things so logically. And it's kind of like really, I think this is an energy of really balancing how much are we giving of ourselves, and how much are we nourishing ourselves, how much, love are we giving to ourselves compared to how much work that we've been giving out into the world. And I feel like in a lot of different ways this can be really challenging, because we're looking at what makes us feel emotionally safe, like mentally, because Mercury is all about the mind. And so this Mercury in Cancer retrograde, I feel like is really pulling us and pulling anybody who hasn't been truthful with themselves in an emotional sense to like come back and like you cannot, around this time, this is not a time that we can sit and pretend that we don't feel the things that we feel. Like if there's something coming up emotionally, I would say it's probably best to just express that emotionally. And I feel like with it, Mercury retrograde, it's like this is such a sensitive energy. I feel like this is such an energy of like somebody may say something that really really bothers you and really really hits something within you that you're like, it just takes you back. There's a lot of like reminiscing old patterns that you may have thought you moved on from are coming and kind of resurfacing and asking us to like really move on from them. I feel like with this Mercury in Cancer, like Cancer, it's so stereotypical, but I see it as the most emotional sign, and when the most emotional sign, the sign that's all about sensitivity, emotion, nurturance, kind of being the mother, is in Mercury, which is all about communication. That's retrograde. Like, that's all like, this is a retrograde is also a time where that energy is being pulled inward. So, like, I don't know, I see a lot of this as like we're feeling maybe very sensitive emotionally in a lot of different ways, and we're having to check ourselves emotionally before reacting, because I feel like acting out of impulse with Mercury and Cancer is just maybe not the best idea, because people can get their feelings hurt. I feel like this energy in general makes it so communication becomes a little bit more difficult. Just in general, there's kind of like this, you need to kind of watch what you say, and you need to also not take what other people are saying to you too personally. And that's kind of like the general vibe I'm picking up from with this Mercury retrograde in Cancer. This is also going to be conjunct to Jupiter, and so I believe on the same exact day. So this is going to be big. This is going to be big energy. Like, I feel like there's going to be big themes of wanting to feel like you belong somewhere, wanting that sense of safety, that sense of home, that sense of nurturance, and also kind of balancing with that with what are we achieving? What are we accomplishing? And sometimes we can find ourselves working a little bit too hard and forgetting to like really give ourselves that love, that nurturance, that, time to like just take care of ourselves and mother ourselves, rather than, pushing ourselves to a point where we're neglecting that side of ourselves in a lot of ways. And I feel like that's kind of just like the general vibe I'm picking up. Also, not only that, but we have Jupiter entering Leo, which is going to be quite. It's going to be. I feel like Jupiter entering Leo has got this reputation as of so far as to be like, oh my goodness, it's everybody's main character moment. And yes, I feel like this is going to make a lot of us feel more confident than ever in a lot of different ways. That's for sure. But I feel like we need to make sure, I feel like especially before this hits, like we need to make sure our baseline, especially with Chiron entering Taurus, like life is literally, like the universe is literally pointing us to like make sure we have that like emotional, like that Chiron, that deepest wound of ours, make sure that that's being healed, that's being looked at in a lot of different ways. And then Jupiter in Leo is just like, I feel like Mercury retro, I feel like a lot of different ways this energy is reading, like we are going to feel more seen, we are going to feel more heard, we're going to feel more visible, we're going to feel like expressing ourselves more, of course. But I feel like in a lot of ways we have to make sure before we move into this, this creative, fun-loving Leo energy, that we make sure that we have that work-life balance all situated, that we're, taking care of ourselves emotionally, and we're, making sure that there's a good balance between how much we're giving and really checking in with ourselves. What are we tying our own worth to? Because I feel like this whole energy before Jupiter entering Leo is like pointing us to like, hey, before you get super cocky and confident, like we want to make sure that you got this emotional baseline, that you're being honest with yourself, that you're being honest with others, that you're being intentional with what you say, like before you are in the spotlight. Like before this all, we get to the next level of things, we want to make sure everything's kind of situated with what just happened. Like, I don't know, like, this is giving us a steady emotional baseline, especially with Chiron entering Taurus. Like, this is giving us a very healing energy, I feel like, that will ground us with this Jupiter and Leo transit. And that's what, like, obviously we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, because we're going to get a boost of this kind of, like, super confident energy. But at the same time, with this boost of super confident energy, we want to make sure we're releasing anything that we no longer need to be carrying moving forward with this full moon in Capricorn. And this full moon in Capricorn is looking at things very logically. And so we want to think about this like, we want to be anything when it comes to long-term plans. And I feel like this full moon is really asking us to release anything that doesn't need to be coming with us on our journey towards this greater destination. It's like, it's almost like we're on this road, and I feel like a lot of us have gotten this momentum in our lives, and I feel like this full moon in Capricorn is really like, hey, let's release anything that we don't need before continuing this long-term journey, which is all about, Capricorn's all about long-term achievements. And I feel like this really is a time for all of us to be releasing anything that's in our way when it comes to our long-term achievements, our long-term goals. What's stopping us from getting to where we want to go? What are we holding on to that we shouldn't be holding on to, that's stopping us from getting these long-term achievements, that's stopping us from achieving this reputation? And a lot of that has to come down to that Cancer energy of like really making sure that you feel like you emotionally belong, feeling like you are cared for. Like that has to be in check before you try to get this legacy. And I feel like it's really an energy of just releasing anything that you no longer need to be taking with you when it comes to your long-term goals and your long-term visions. And so I don't know, I feel like it's going to be I would just recommend, if anything, shadow work, ask yourself questions, clean. Full moons are an excellent time to just clean out your space, like clean out your phone. With the Mercury in Cancer, like we really just want to kind of like, I see this as like full moon is releasing. We need to be really like anything that's holding you back, any thoughts that are holding you back, anything that's making you feel like you need to overwork yourself in any sort of way in order to achieve what you want to. We really just want to be reminding ourselves that we don't have to, like in order to get to where we want to go, we're not going to get there by overworking ourselves either. So this is a really good time to just, I think, simplify the process. Release anything you need to when it comes to your long-term goals. Be intentional about what you say, because what you say might be perceived in a very emotionally sensitive way. And I feel like really speak from your heart, speak from your soul. Don't, like, I feel like if you're trying to hide how you feel, that's not really going to work with this Mercury in Cancer. I feel like this energy is like bringing up anything that really just needs to be released, and be really intentional and actually like maybe even sit down and write down like your long-term goal and like look at it on a piece of paper and look at, is there any part of this process that I know I no longer need to be holding on to? And yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be a wonderful time. I think the full moon in Capricorn is definitely giving like, this is giving just like going back to the writing pad, going back to like brainstorming and like really like looking at the master plan and making sure that our master plan is now adjusted to what we need now, that we're not carrying anything that's stopping us from these long-term goals, that we're, paying attention to getting things done, that we're kind of giving more attention to structure, we're giving more attention to boundaries, we're giving more attention to those things and incorporating it with this Cancerian energy. I think there's a lot of energy happening and I'm really excited for it. Overall, I think it's really a time to be focusing on what is going to drive us to these long-term goals and these long-term achievements, and that really is having that strong emotional baseline and having that confidence, Jupiter and Leo. And so, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If this resonated with you in any sort of way, I would love to hear it. Yeah, I'll see you guys. See you guys next time.